Hello. Welcome,
Hi,
everyone. Hi,
thank
welcome,
you.
Jen. So excited to have you on the call with us today.
Thank
For
you.
everyone tuning in, my name is Melanie Naranjo. I'm the VP of People here at Athena. We're a compliance training company. We do everything from compliance training to hotline and case management. I'm so thrilled to be chatting with you today, Jen. Jen is a customer of Athena's, and we are always so thrilled and excited to be chatting with our customers. Jen Hecht, VP of People Operations at Posit. I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us
My
today.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, and one of the things I really love highlighting about customers is there's so much more to you all. It's not just the
Mhm.
relationship between you and us as a vendor, but also learning about your experience, learning about your background, learning about the company you're with. And so I'd love to kick it off by just asking you to share with the audience just a little bit more about yourself. Who are you? How'd you get to where you
Yeah.
are today?
I've been in the HR space for almost 3 decades now, to be honest. And my first HR gig was in a used record store. But then after grad school, I started a series of gigs in big companies, originally doing things like manager effectiveness and leadership development, but always been a bit of a dork, I guess, and I loved the data and the nerdy side of HR, so I started doing more analytics. Long story short, in one of my big company HR roles, I was encouraged by a manager who didn't come from HR. She was a process engineer to start really going deeper on statistics and data. I started doing a master's program at night in data science and came into contact with the company and the products that Posit makes. Posit rebranded in 2022. Many people know us as our studio. We make open source software for data science and analytics. We're a public benefit corporation and a certified B Corp. And I joined here as head of people back when we were about 70 employees in 2018. And we're now just over 300 people and hit $100 million in revenue and still going strong on our mission to make knowledge and scientific communication accessible to everybody wherever they are. So I'm here for love and I'm here for the challenge of running an enterprise software company with a public benefit mission, which is it's never a dull moment. You get to pull on a lot of different things, but it's a job, it's a community, it's a team that I absolutely adore. So that's kind of my story.
Let me just say, huge congratulations. I don't think enough people are aware of just the level of work that goes into scaling a company that quickly, especially on the people side. I mean, I imagine that you must have just had just enormously changing dynamics across the team, people that having to figure out, we're not startup land anymore. We're a bigger company. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I would say maybe my people colleagues in the profession wouldn't agree with me, but I honestly think the head of people can be a terrible job if you're not working with people that share your values and with whom you have a trust and alignment going. So I am very fortunate in that I joined a place that had a real sense of what they were about and wonderful people at the helm. A lot of the things that have made it possible to scale and not lose our soul and really hold on to our mission over time has been the quality of leaders that were here at founding. So that being said, I think early days it was a lot of engineers. We still have a lot of engineers, and then a lot of what I would call hardworking generalists doing most of the other work, from customer success to people, which our president was doing until I showed up, to all of the specialized business and functional jobs. That all needed to be built. And I think, we were long on smarts and on motivation and engagement, and in the early days, not a lot of specialized resources. So it's been a real learning process for everyone involved, myself included, on how do you move quickly without breaking anything and challenge yourselves to figure out like how can we move this talented group of people forward? Can people, learn new things? Can they take on new roles? What happens when you specialize? How do you build quickly but not too quickly? How, and I should also say we're privately held. We intend to be so for the long term. So we're also trying to do this and remain profitable. And that put an extra constraint in the process. But it was, there have been real highs of like watching people join the organization. That's one of my favorite things, is seeing people come and what do they bring and what can they teach us and what will they grow into while they're here. And there have been bumpy times, and the technology the last 18, 24 months has been a wild ride just for everybody. We haven't been excluded from that, but I would say I thought I knew a lot going in, and every day I learn something new. So it's an intense thing, but again, I'd come back to it's a job I would only do for certain places, and this would be one of them because it's built of good stuff.
I love that so much. And in particular, what was really fascinating to me about your response, and I think this will resonate with many people listening in, is the business savvy that you are bringing to the discussion, which I think has become increasingly a point of importance and emphasis in the people role, where, for a long time, it was really on the admin side, really focused there. And now it's really strategic. And it means, we're almost playing the COO role in a sense, where we're trying to understand the business so we can communicate with key stakeholders.
Yeah,
Is that landing?
absolutely. And I think, I've worn a lot of HR hats in my own career. I think in a small company in particular, being able to deliver great practices and programs is not really where the bread gets buttered. That's sort of table stakes. You're assumed to be able to do that yourself or build a team of people that can do that. I think what it really takes, though, is being a part of the business leadership team, understanding what our intentions are. It's not just, okay, we're going to react to what's on the ground, but if we want to grow, in what manner do we want to grow? Is that by expanding current customers? Is that by unlocking different markets? Are we going to make new products? If so, how quickly? Like, all of those mean different things for what the workforce and the people need to be capable of taking on. And I think that's where you have to start. So for us, I would say, and I'm sure many other people who've been in a scaling business would agree with me, like manager capability and making sure everybody is being coached up on how to work with other people, how to lead with good ethics and values, how to create a healthy and psychologically safe space for learning. These are some of my top priorities. And depending on what's going on, the how might be very scrappy and just let's get something together. It might be a well thought out long-term program, but I see it as, I'm responsible for delivering a people organization that will be the engine that will achieve the mission. This software, I mean, yes, you make software, but at the end of the day, it's a very human and knowledge intensive business. And that means you've got to have committed people, and knowing how to make lots of choices, because there's an infinite number of ways to build an organization. You've got to be really tightly synced up with the other leaders in the organization so that you can invest in the right things.
Being in the compliance industry, obviously one of the things that you said that really stands out to me is, the focus on ethics and values. I'd love to pivot a bit and talk a little bit about the Posit partnership with Athena.
Yeah,
Uh, one of the things that comes up quite often is, humor and compliance training. It doesn't really sound like these two go together. And yet at Athena, we've very intentionally woven humor into the heart of our trainings. I'm curious to know, as an admin, and keep it real with me, did that scare you at first, especially knowing you have a background in these larger companies, much more corporate? What
yeah.
was the response to sort of the humor approach that we take to a topic as serious, rightfully so, as harassment prevention or cybersecurity, and how have your employees responded?
Yeah, it's a great question. I loved it. when I saw it. So I should say we've been a customer since before you guys were officially like a company. I signed a letter of intent in 2019. Like it was
Whoa.
just Roxanne and Anne at that point. But
Okay, you were a
we've
true.
been evolving alongside Athena. And one of the reasons I signed up so early was that there was literally nothing else out there that I felt was research based and wasn't going to make the actual problems that we're trying to solve worse. I mean, there's compliance and then there's actually building an ethical, inclusive, and safe company. Those two things are different. Like we have to do compliance, but if you're just aiming at the compliance thing, you can have a lot of counter effects that I definitely did not want for a growing company. For me, the humor just took a lot of the anxiety off of it. Sometimes humor can send you down a weird path, and people are trying to make jokes and show off, and it doesn't always work. But I felt like the humor in Athena was a breath of fresh air because these topics are heavy. In the part of the business world that I hang out in tech, people really do want to do the right thing for the most part, but they're terrified of doing the wrong thing. And what I really didn't need or want was something that just sort of upped the fear level. Like you've seen those old fashioned things they used to show at corporate about like, no, Sally, don't go to the bar with your manager after work. You know what's going to happen. Like it creates an environment where everybody's scared to even engage, and that would be deadly for a growing company. At the same time, like I wanted to put in a clear sense of where our norms are. So it's unambiguous. This is what we expect of everyone. And just make that part of how we onboard, how part of how we bring people on board. And the humor, number one, it helped with getting people to actually do it because initially it was so novel. Like people are like, "Oh my God, did you do that Athena training?" Because I had a couple of people that was like, "Athena gets me. It totally gets my sense of humor." Um, I, I've had very few people take up the option. I think you can still turn off the humor thing, or you had that model for a while. We had a couple that were, maybe it made them feel uncomfortable, but for the most part, people look forward to it. And it's been great in harassment, but we now also do Athena's compliance training for cybersecurity and a lot of our tech compliance and what's the other one? Anti-bribery. And those topics from my perspective are really boring, especially if you're not in that lane. But I still kind of look forward to seeing what Athena's come up with to keep them entertaining. So I think it's a huge advantage, and I think it actually makes the topic discussable because it removes some of the fear.
That is so heartwarming to hear. In particular, I speak as a fellow HR person. I literally left my last company because I loved our product so much. I remember as part of my interview process, they sent me a sample training from our Pride Nudge, where we celebrate Pride Month as part of harassment prevention, understanding pronouns, things like that. And I remember, it was a Hispanic woman who identified as queer, and it was a comic strip of just a day in the life of her. And I just felt so seen, and also
Yeah,
I felt like, this is harassment prevention training, really? This
yeah,
counts.
yeah.
To your point, that novelty factor, it really stands out. It makes you sort of like sit up and pay attention. Um,
Yes.
I'm curious to know, speaking of sort of the novelty factor and how employees react and sort of that sort of thing, on the one hand, I heard early on a little bit implicitly, there's like a little bit of risk inherent, right? Because you're putting this out there to your stakeholders, to your employees, and also you want it to be meaningful. You want it to
Yeah.
actually land. I'm curious to talk about, I think, a topic that most people don't address often enough, in my opinion, which is, you know, as an HR person, picking a vendor isn't just about, okay, we have a problem, we got to solve it. There's also all this sort of like social capital, political things going on in the background.
Baggage. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like if I roll out a
Yeah.
training and it doesn't land, how is that going to reflect on
Yeah.
future things that I need buy-in on? How are the employees going to feel? I'm curious to know from your perspective, what has kept you renewing with Athena year over year, and what has been the impact in terms of those very important things? things, such as getting stakeholder buy-in, getting people to come along on this journey with you and trusting you with the next people initiative.
Yeah, I would say this was something that I knew the company was going to need, and I was absolutely dreading it, partly for that reason, because I don't think we're unique in the tech startup land of having a fairly skeptical workforce when it comes to sort of your run-of-the-mill people stuff, whether that's performance reviews or that's this or that, compliance training is one of those things people just tend to automatically roll their eyes when they hear about it. The concept of having a people team and a people leader was still relatively new to this crowd when I made this decision. And I guess what I would say is the social capital expenditure that I wanted to make and would make again in a heartbeat was I will use my role, my status, my good name to stand up for the idea that these things matter, and setting norms in the right place as early as possible is super important if we're going to have a sustainable company. I would have fought anybody on that. I would have, those are chips that I would spend again and again and again. What I was nervous about was, am I going to be able to find a solution? Because I wasn't resourced to build anything on my own. And we have, like you guys do, we have a remote workforce. We're in most of the 50 states. We have Canadians, we have Europeans. I can't keep track of all of that stuff without help. So I wanted to find a vendor that I understood they knew the science. So, I think most good HR professionals know that, training can sometimes create the opposite effect of what you're trying to do if it elicits fear. And I kind of felt like I'm dreading this because we have to do it for legal reasons, but it could hurt our culture. It could hurt the advancement of women, for example. It perpetuate stereotypes or perpetuate an environment where people feel like those who are in a minority status need some kind of coddling. And like, I was afraid of what that might mean. I didn't want my name on anything that felt that way. So I was really thrilled to find people speaking the same ideas that I had studied and understood. And I was proud to bring it, even if I did get a little bit of eye roll of like, oh, really? We thought you were cool at the front end. I think as time has gone on, and I would say it wasn't long, a few months of people seeing it, they're like, oh, I get it. We have people in our business that are educators who are really appreciative of the attention to adult learning research and how people actually retain. They liked the micro settings. They liked the flexibility of listening. I mean, I've had very, very, very few complaints about the training. And as we've branched out into other forms, I think it's still something I feel really proud of. Initially, we had a different vendor doing all of our IT compliance and cybersecurity work that nobody liked, including the IT team. And so when Athena opened that up, they were like, ooh, can we get in on that? And the sales team, when we built out our sales enablement team, we have folks building our own customized training, like, oh my gosh, they have an LMS, let's use that. So I feel like I'm proud that we partnered with Athena when we did. We've been able to kind of grow together in a way of, your company has evolved, you have more product lines now, the different training. And we haven't implemented it yet, but we just put in the case management tool, which I'm really psyched about. Early days, but in a fast moving startup, there's a huge risk around. I have 3 of us that can handle ER cases, and really all that stuff shouldn't be on my desktop and definitely shouldn't be in the Google Drive. So, what could we do that's not this giant, huge case management thing built for a Fortune 500 company, right? But it's still secure, and, we can have people reporting things with some comfort of anonymity. So we're growing alongside you guys, and I still feel really proud of the partnership.
It's honestly so amazing to hear your journey with us as sort of an early adopter right at the very beginning. And then as we grow, taking on our new products as well, like our hotline and case management tool, our LMS. I was really fascinated in particular when you said even the IT team was excited about switching over to
Yeah,
our cybersecurity training, especially because, I'm going to be really direct here. I think oftentimes when it comes to required trainings like
yeah,
compliance training, some of the loudest detractors can be at the executive level. So, for example, I don't want my entire team losing 2 hours to this training. We're trying to close deals this quarter, right? And my very direct question is, how does your executive team feel about Athena and your choice to go with Athena?
well, I think, in the beginning, I don't think all of them were familiar enough with what the legal requirements are, or why it's just not their zone. Like, it's not like they were opposed to having a well-run organization with good norms and practices. They just didn't really, it's not their domain. They're sort of like, well, I guess so. Okay, sure, if we have to do it. But I would say it's been very well received to the point where, like, my boss, our company president, we were catching up the other day and he was like, I was catching up on all the Athena trainings because we just put in a new push on cybersecurity and most of the executive team is like a week behind. And he was like, you got to do yours. And he was like, I had a couple things in there that I hadn't seen before. And he was like, wow, it really, sometimes it feels like the things that we're learning are just sort of following the days of our lives. Like, oh my gosh, we just hit this kind of example last week. Um, so people are engaged. I mean, we're human beings, so we're constantly trying to find new ways to make sure that compliance stays where we need it to be. But that's more an issue of busyness and distraction. It's not that people are saying, oh, this is dumb and I don't get it. I've had managers who will come to me saying, I observed this thing in a meeting and I know we talked about this in Athena training. So yeah,
Oh,
it's not harassment training in
yeah,
our company, it's
yeah.
Athena training.
That's amazing. I mean, that is huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
Genuinely, I don't
Yeah.
know at my last company that people even knew the name of our provider.
Oh
And
yeah, they know. And it's in I think the game changer for us honestly was very, very early days. There was no Slack integration yet for Athena. So it was all
ah,
coming in an email. I think we went to Slack about 6 months in, and that works like a charm because they get reminders. The IT team also, like, they're not messing around. They're like publishing the compliance statistics every week, and they're like, "Come on, guys, we're behind." Um, People team, we're used to having everybody not do things, so we're taking a lesson from them. Like, oh, we could be that hard about it too. But no, it's been great, and I feel so much more comfortable saying yes to hires in states that I'm not familiar with. Like, I think we just made our first hire in Alabama a couple of weeks ago. I know nothing about Alabama's state law, but thank God somebody at Athena does. And that person, whoever
amazing.
they are, will take care and make sure we're compliant. And we'll all be kind of under the same umbrella in terms of what that core set of ethics and principles are, which is really the most important part. So
I think so. And also, can I just say what a privilege it is in some ways that, the things we're talking about is, oh, yes, how long it takes, versus talking about things which I don't know if I mean, I'm going to guess you can identify having worked at large companies in the past, execs reaching out because, halfway through the training it stopped and now they have to start over, or what's the right
yeah,
login, or do I have to take this training or that training? It sounds like none of those admin
those
issues.
problems don't exist. I mean, I think the platform is pretty self-explanatory. I think I've never heard anybody say, "Oh my God, this is so onerous." It's more just people procrastinate and they don't do it. I haven't done the interview training that's scheduled because I've already done it 3 times, and so it's fallen down my to-do list. I'm out of compliance, but it's not because like the thing doesn't work, right? It's yeah, people get it. They know they're supposed to do it. And we talk about our values around people and what kind of company we want to be. And they know that, making sure that everybody hears this, it's a safety issue of how people feel. Like I feel like I can be myself a little bit because I know this company, even if I have a bad interaction, I know this company believes certain things. Like that's huge, right? So I think again, like I can't take credit for this, but we have good leaders at the top who understand like in order to have a company that lasts, you have to have people that are committed, and they can only really commit if they feel like they belong and that they won't be mistreated here in the name of whatever power or profit. It matters.
Jen, thank you so much for this chat. It's honestly been so insightful. Also, just genuinely such a delight. I'm really sad. I hope we chat some more in the future.
Yeah, likewise, likewise. I think Athena is amazing. I've loved watching the company grow, and yeah, it's a pleasure to have a chance to kind of recap where we've
Thank
been
you.
together. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Jen, truly. Thank you all for listening in. And Jen, really excited to continue the partnership.
likewise. Thank you.